That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 6 Venom. Reading through this, I really saw a lot of parallels to the Amazing Spider-Man movie. It's not perfect, but I do enjoy a lot of stuff in this. How to put this? Okay, let's start with the Amazing Spider-Man parallels. So in the Amazing Spider-Man, the Parkers disappear without a trace, blah blah blah, or they not without a trace. The plane crash, whole thing happens. And in this, we have like a similar thing. There was a plane crash with the Parkers on it, but the reason behind it is eluded was because Peter's dad was working on something called the Venom Project. And it was a suit, a biological suit that you would wear that would make your body cure its own cancer, and multiple other things. And there's a lot of interesting stuff done with the idea of legacy and responsibility and people being screwed over by other people who don't deserve it. There's a lot of stuff like that done. So, I think my biggest problem with this as I'm looking through it again is the black suit Spidey moments. Because it's like this much of the book. Part of the thing that makes Venom such an interesting character is the symbiote is just as much a part of the character as the person wearing it. It's a two-way street. It's a partnership. It's a symbiosis. Who would have guessed? So I don't like that the symbiote is not really consequential here, and especially with how it's played off with Peter. So Peter has the black costume for an hour. That bugs the hell out of me. And there's more to why that bothers me, or more to the stuff about the symbiote that bothers me, but just the fact that they do the black suit stuff in 1 hour of him wearing it really annoys me. That just kind of stomps on what I feel is like a really, really big part of the Venom character. The relationship with Peter Parker, the love for Peter Parker is a really big part of that character to me. And to just kind of have it be there and gone is really troublesome. Now, it's still hard for him to take it off and everything, but the reason he takes it off is because he goes to stop a guy who held up a store. He goes to try to stop him, but then he has flashbacks to his father, or to Uncle Ben dying, because of a very similar situation, and he's ready to kill the guy. He's like, the Venom suit kind of takes over and is inches away from killing him, before Peter snaps out of it and is able to fight off the costume. And it's like a really exhausting thing for him. And yeah, that's cool, but at the same time, an hour? Spider-Man 3 did it better. And that's not a good thing. Like, you gotta give the suit time to properly attach to Peter. Just getting rid of the suit after an hour is just awful. I don't know. I really, really hate that. Like, that is hands down the worst part of this book, is that the suit is there for an hour. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. Because in the next issue, Peter is able to destroy the symbiote. Like, he's able to bottle the suit back up, and he explains what happened to Eddie Brock, and Eddie. I'll get into Eddie's character and stuff involved in this in a minute, because it's really well handled. Anyways, he's able to bottle the symbiote back up and destroy it. But then how, and he does legitimately destroy it. But I hear you asking, if he does legitimately destroy it, how do we have Venom in this? And I'll go ahead and read this thing. He did it. Little jerk took it. That's Eddie talking. 15-year-old mutant coming into my life and telling me thinks I don't have a brain in my head. It's an ongoing experiment, you toddler. You keep the specimens separate. Separate so you can keep your figures straight. Guess they didn't get to that in high school bio yet. And so Eddie Brock has a completely different symbiote, or a different sample of the symbiote. At that point, the symbiote has no character. At that point, the symbiote is roid rage. The symbiote, at least in this, the symbiote has no character of its own, and that's a huge issue. You can't have Venom unless you have the symbiote that just as much hates Spider-Man as Eddie Brock does. So that's really, really troubles me. It's the black suit being on him for an hour and then getting discarded, but you could at least salvage that if you had the symbiote hate him for discarding it. But they don't. It's a completely new symbiote. But of course this brings up an issue. Well, it's a different continuity. They don't have to do everything exactly the same. It doesn't have to be just the way it was in the original story, and it can improve upon it. And certainly, I agree with that 100%. But this isn't an improvement. That really cheapens the character of Venom, and it just puts it all on Eddie Brock, and it makes Eddie Brock just another scientist-like character, and especially in this, it's another scientist character that taps into a power that he can't possibly control, and it overwhelms him, and then he takes out his rage on Spider-Man. What was interesting about Venom was he was in a lot of ways the exception to Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. One sec, just because I'm talking about Venom. Got this little bootleg figure a while ago. Show it off. Venom Big Fig Lego. What's interesting about Venom is he is not like all the other Spider-Man villains. Besides just the, Eddie Brock and his whole honor code thing aside, Venom has a personal vendetta against Spider-Man that's pretty legitimate. It varies villain to villain, but most of them are just like crazy guys that unjustly blame Spider-Man for their misfortune. But Venom, like, legit, you discarded me. Venom's like this scorned lover character, or from the from the symbiote's perspective, Venom's this scorned lover character that Spider-Man just threw away like so much trash. And I don't know, that bugs me that part of the character is lost. And then Eddie Brock in this, though. Eddie Brock is the highlight of this book. So, Eddie Brock is very much the anti-Spider-Man in this, and I like that about it. He is a kid that, a little older than Peter at the time of their parents' death. Their fathers were working together on the Venom project, and he's spent his whole life trying to live up to and recreate his father's work. But he's not good enough. He doesn't really deserve it. He's not good-hearted like Peter is a lot of what's going on with him in this. But more than all that, what I really like about him is this scene that he has with Gwen Stacy. So Gwen is 15 like Peter in this book. Where is it at? Dang it. Finding stuff is hard. Oh. Come on. Okay. So they're hanging out in his dorm room, and he goes in for a kiss, and she's like, "Hey, come on." "What?" "Don't. You serious?" "Yeah, come on." "Why?" "I'm only 15, first of all. I thought you wouldn't care about something like that. Girl like you." "Girl like me? What does that mean exactly?" You came up here. It's my college dorm room. You come in all to hang out," she says. "But I see that isn't good enough, so..." And he calls her a tease, and then she, slams the door as he leaves. Or as she leaves, and he goes, "They're all the same, never changes." I really like that. He's, it's a college guy trying to sleep with a 15-year-old. That's creepy. That's weird. There's clearly a lot of stuff already wrong with Eddie Brock, but he doesn't want to acknowledge that. It's always someone else's problem. It's always something that's wrong with somebody else. Eddie Brock is never responsible for Eddie Brock. He is a victim of circumstances, and I really, really like that. Because Peter Parker is a character that's always, overbearing on his responsibilities. And we have that here. We have Peter dealing with not being able to talk Eddie down as they have this really, really cool fight between him and Venom. And I like it's Spider-Man kind of at his bare minimum. He doesn't have his costume, he doesn't have his web shooters, but he has to try to find a way to beat Venom. It was one of the, in mainline continuity, one of the stronger Spider-Man villains, and we don't have any indication that's not the case here. And he does beat him through sheer luck, but still, it's a cool victory nonetheless that you have a Spider-Man who is at his lowest stats and is able to come through the winner with a little help from the NYPD. But then you have Peter go and have a conversation with Nick Fury about wanting his powers taken away and how he's not good enough. He can't handle the responsibility of being Spider-Man anymore. He doesn't want it. He's not good enough for it. And Nick Fury tells him, "Dude, you're just a kid. Just take it easy. Take some of this pressure off of yourself. You're going to be great one day. I promise you that. I can see it in you, but you're just a kid. You got to try to stay back and just enjoy your life for a while right now. Because all that stuff, it's going to come one day, but it'll come when it gets there. There's no need for you to rush into it." I really, really like that. That's great. It's a great juxtaposition of those two characters. So Eddie Brock's stuff is great. and ultimately, once he becomes Venom, I like how he's just unbridled rage. That's really interesting. That he's just, kind of like a mad dog. That's well handled. I just really don't like what they do to the symbiote in this. The symbiote has no character. The symbiote is a suit that makes you angry in this, and that bugs me. So yeah, that's very disappointing about this book. So I've got mixed feelings on here, and I don't normally do like a proper rating on this show, but with this one I feel like I have to. So on a 5 scale, I'm gonna give it a really shaky 3. Really shaky 3. Almost a 2.5, where it's dead center even, but I liked enough about it that I will give it a shaky 3. So thank you for recommending that I pick this up. I hope... sorry, I forgot your name. Something with Batman in it. I'm like 60% sure. But yeah, I was glad to read it. It was a really interesting read, and it had a lot of really neat stuff with like videotapes of Peter's father. And there's one other quick scene. Maybe this is just how Bendis likes to write Aunt May. Where is it? It's like, I think the next page. Yeah, okay. This is Aunt May talking to Gwen Stacy. And listen, before I know it, I am up on the scaffolding and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, "Jimi Hendrix, will you marry me?" And Jimmy points his guitar right at me, and I just really like that. Aunt May was a wild child back in the 60s. That's funny. I just find that really interesting. Anyway, so there's enough in this that I did enjoy it, and that's why I'm bumping it up to a 3, but there's obviously, my big complaints about it, so I don't think I'll be picking up any more Ultimate Spider-Man based on this. That could maybe change, but right now I think I'm good.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.